Evening, everybody. It's Comic Crack, and welcome back to another episode where we take a dive into Eclipse Comics output during their publication history. So tonight I wanted to talk about a series that I've really wholeheartedly gotten into in the past, I don't know, couple of weeks. Found a spot in town that had a whole stack, probably about half of the series, and I think it was a 36 issue run, and I've read exactly half. I've read up to issue 18, and it's just too good that I couldn't wait to read the whole series before I talked about it. I wanted to talk about this while it was still fresh in my mind as well. So we're going to take a look at Kamui, the Legend of Kamui, a genuine ninja story. So I have Area 88 and Mai the Psychic Girl out as well. These three manga series, were Eclipse and Viz's first forays together into publishing some manga for a North American audience. They're considered, from the reading that I've done, they're considered some of the very first manga to be translated into English and introduced. And what are we looking in here? We're looking at 1987 with Kamui. Although this one says second printing, so I believe they were all 1987, though. I think they were all around the same time. I haven't started this because I only have, so far I've only grabbed 2 issues of each of these series, so I can't talk about these today, which is fine. That's not our focus. Our focus is on what is turning out to be the absolutely stunning Legend of Kamui. I tell you, there's something about it. It's one of those books that really, for me, highlights what's so great about manga and just comics in general. The world that they can introduce you to, and just the way you can get sucked in, and the way you can tell a story with just still panels and it still feel incredibly active and alive, for me, is really, really done so well with this series. So I've spoken about it before, that I started watching Manben, which is a series that you can find online. Most of the episodes are subtitled, and each episode focuses on a different mangaka, like a manga artist, and they set up cameras in their workspace and they show how they're creating their comics. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. One thing that I didn't really realize was that a lot of the manga was done by teams. There are artists that just work on their own, but there's a lot that work in teams. And those teams can really range from one artist, the main artist, kind of doing a lot of the figure drawing, handing it over to somebody that just purely does backgrounds. They hand it over to someone else that just does like the zipatone and the shading and that sort of thing, and then it kind of comes full circle back to the main artist, where they then touch up the main figure, to some artists that do every single stitch of the page, the layouts, the drawing of the scenes, the backgrounds, all of the details, all of the shading, everything, lettering, everything themselves. I don't know the story with this creator, who, let's make sure, Sanpei Shirato. But there is some incredible, incredible work here. I guess the one thing that you notice is a lot of these kind of backgrounds. It almost looks there's a real looseness to all of the art. There's a real kind of energy that's happening here. I guess Eclipse had done a Kamui. I think it might have been a one-shot just before this series takes place. So with this series itself, I'm going to see if I can open a page here. I believe it ran 21 volumes. Yeah. So its original run, it originally came out in 1964 and ran until 1971. 21 volumes in total. It appeared in a magazine called The Weekly Shonen Sunday. It got turned into an animated series in, I think, oh boy, let's see, was it 1969? Yes. So April 1969 to September 1969. 26 episodes, 22 minutes each. I found a bunch of those on YouTube. Unfortunately, those aren't subtitled, but you can kind of get a taste of it. There was also a movie that came out, Kamui Gaiden, 2009, and I want to say that there was another one as well, too, a live-action movie. And apparently the live-action movie is just incredible from what I've been reading, people talking about this book. So the basic premise is we have a ninja that has left his clan and broken off on his own. So kind of like the Ronin, the wandering samurai, we have this lone ninja warrior that is, once a ninja leaves the clan sets out to kill that ninja. So he's kind of, we get the sense that he's been on the run. Now, I don't know where this series that's reprinted picks up from. I know it doesn't pick up right from the beginning, but that said, I think it's a really, really great start. We get an excellent intro to just kind of the world and our main character, who right away is kind of thrown into the middle of this scene where he's fast asleep and there's some kind of royalty that are doing some hunting, and all of a sudden a horse gets a dart in his ass and he comes and chops off the leg of the horse, which really just then sets our entire story into motion. Kamui comes in to kind of save this lone individual from getting just annihilated. So you don't get too much of a sense of his character quite yet. We know who he is, and we do get a sense of the world, but you don't really get much else from this first issue, which isn't a bad thing. I hope that's showing up in my computer here, that monitor. It doesn't look like it's too amazing looking there. Hopefully that's showing up for you and you get a sense of that. I'm trying to pre-record this time just to see if I can get it reading a little better. So Kamui, on his voyage, he gets onto a fishing boat and is going to kind of continue on. They're met with a real severe storm and the boat's capsized, and Kamui washes up on the shore, where he runs into none other than the same gentleman early on who cut off the horse's leg. And that introduces us to kind of the first story arc, this fishing village, and just what we get a better sense of what this series is going to be. So this particular book, even though it was in kind of a magazine that was aimed more at teenage boys, this particular, I'm going to blank on a lot of the terminology for this stuff. Gekiga, and that was more adult-oriented, with adult-themed kind of manga. So even though it appeared in a magazine that was kind of focused to boys around the age of 12 to 18, this there was kind of an offshoot that was really geared towards more adult audiences, more adult themes. There's a lot of one of the big themes with this, which you'll see in another issue when I pull that out, is kind of the brutality of nature and just animals in general, and humans' interaction with various animals, and fishing specifically in this one. But there's a lot of brutality of nature that really mirrors the action that's going on with our main characters, especially as the characters start, our character base starts growing. Which leads us to probably one of the single most fascinating issues I've read in recent history. Here we have issue number 3. We found out a little more about this fishing village. We found out a little more about our main character, Kamui, plus the kind of father figure that he befriends and his family. Their livelihood is fishing. So with that said, they have a lot of very specific techniques, and they have this entire issue is focused on fishing. Kamui and his father figure go out, and he just gets taught the ways of fishing. So we get some battle scenes. So this really, fight scenes as well, this really shows some nice, real good examples of that energetic, almost sloppy art style. But the movement that's in there is fantastic. Like, you really get a sense that this is a high-speed bit of action, along with some violence. So off to the fishing boat, where they start talking about jellyfish, the red striped ones being more poisonous. One touch and you'll swell up like a blowfish, not to mention the pain. And if you get it in your eyes, better get used to being blind, for a while at least. Best you remember that, lad. So he now starts talking about his lure that he made out of the horse's hoof, and how this is going to be, he calls it his Ichijiro. And this is going to be the thing that's going to bring a lot of fish to his village. Every angler has his own specific lure, and this is going to be his, and it's going to be very prosperous. So the entire issue is just talking about fishing, and that's all that they talk about. So there's not so much character development with their story, but you do really get a fantastic sense of who these characters are in relation to their world, and how Kamui is kind of out of his element here, but is really, really quick to learn, and you really get the sense throughout this issue that there's a real strong bond growing between these two. And just some amazing art with all of these fish. Then we get introduced to the sharks that play a really big part in these first kind of, I'd say, 11 issues. They start to kind of terrorize this village to some degree. Again, kind of mirroring stuff that's going to come up. We just get a sense of one of them here. There's swarms of them later on. A really good intro to what's to come down the line. I don't want to go too deeply into this. I don't want to give you any spoilers, but I do want to highlight one more issue. Eventually, another group of warriors, I guess, another group of people that they come across, they make their living going from fishing village to fishing village, and there we go, right here. So this is from issue number 7. They go from fishing village to fishing village, and all they do is rid the village of their shark infestation. Unfortunately, the best thing to get the sharks' attention are stray dogs, which they use as bait, alive, and so they can get the sharks to to kind of attack the bait so they can clear out the waters and just slaughter these sharks and bring the heads back to the village to show what they've done. In return, they don't ask for any payment. All they want is a bed, booze, and food, really. There's a lot of people getting attacked by sharks eventually, which leads them to wanting this help. And a lot of these kind of scenes to come on in later issues. When the violence does hit, it's pretty extreme. So here we go. So they catch a bunch of stray dogs, and that's what they're going to use to go out and bait these sharks so they can kill them all off. Kamui also gets to, for the most part, he really hides all his sword techniques. But when they do come out, he really proves himself to be a force to be reckoned with. There's some great passages where he's on the shore and he's basically attacking the waves as they come in and jumping back so none of the water as it splashes on shore hits him whatsoever, to just practice his natural kind of instinctual movement. Really, really amazing stuff. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about, we could go through each issue and I could show you so many incredible scenes, especially once Kamui starts to really utilize nature and utilize the water and get comfortable with the water. Fascinating stuff. So at the end of most of the issues, we have a little bit of the mythology of ninjas. So this particular issue is ninjas and animals, and how the ninja would use their surroundings. They talk about various weapons, they talk about various fighting skills from issue to issue, till finally they start to get a letters column. When we hit these issues, and specifically number 11, it just takes an absolutely incredible turn. I remember when I was still following Walking Dead, when one of the main characters would get killed, I remember having a reaction, because you grow to really understand these characters and you really get sucked into the world, that when somebody does get killed, it really ends up hitting you. The fascinating thing about this series is we're only talking 11 issues. We're not talking 5 volumes of a graphic novel or anything. We're talking in an 11-issue arc. You're invested in these characters, so when things start happening a little more dramatically to these characters, it hits you. After issue 11, I think it was one of those rare moments where I vocalized out loud and put the book down and was just kind of stunned, but also completely blown away by not just my reaction, but the fact that this book had brought me on this journey that I was completely absorbed in. I was sad to see this kind of arc end, but it really highlights something that he's really great at doing. And from some of the reading that I've done online, it's what the story goes through a lot, with these very subtle shifts building to this incredible peak. And then we hit issue 12 and 13. I can't remember which one specifically. It might have been 13. So there's 2 issues back to back after we're finished that first arc, where we don't see Kamui at all in the issues. It focuses on other characters and starts bringing in more of the world. As he's exploring the world and discovering things, we kind of discover and explore along with him. The characters that we get introduced to, there's one great issue where we follow a character for about half the book until he finally gets killed, leading us to other characters. So the way that he tells these stories is just masterfully done, really bringing you in and giving you these nuggets. but also not afraid to really take his time with the storytelling and really introduce you to more of the surroundings and characters that are going to play a bigger part as we go through the series. Highly, highly recommended. If you can find this book, if you can find this series issues, I don't know if it was ever collected, but they're not expensive to find. So if you can find any of these, I would suggest giving it a try. I bought the first 5 issues just to give myself a taste to see if I wanted to pursue it. Again, because I knew that there was a shop that had a bunch, so if I really liked the first 5, I knew exactly where to go to get them. I generally don't like to start a series unless I have most, if not all of it. And this one is killing me a little bit because I haven't been able to find any more yet. I'm sure they're out there, I just haven't found them yet. I'm hoping I can find them locally and just finish off this series. Give the first 5 issues a shot, see what you think, and honestly, I think this pairs really nicely with the Man Ben show. Check out that show, read this series. You'll find you enjoy it a lot more. I've never really been a huge manga fan. It's not like I've never read any of it, I just haven't really gotten into it whole hog. Just kind of dabbled, I guess. But reading a stellar series like this really makes me want to devour them more. So that's it. Thanks very much, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope you're enjoying these Eclipse series. I'm loving diving into this company, and there's so much more that I have in the boxes of Eclipse that I cannot wait to get into. Especially, again, when I hit something that really resonates. So far, it's been kind of hit and miss. This one is definitely a hit. I would say one of the best things I've read from Eclipse so far, beyond things like Scout. It's right up there with that series for me. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you.